Hi everybody, this is Paige from Paperbacks and Lattes, and today I will be telling you the books that I read in July. So I had a total of 28 books in July. I only read 27 because I did have one DNF, which is Do Not Finish. I had 15 5 stars, 11 4 stars, 1 3 star, and 1 DNF. So of course I read a lot of books that I really like. I usually rate pretty high because I will not read anything that I don't like. So I really don't have anything below 3 stars usually, because if it's below 3 stars then I just won't finish it. The book that I did not finish was Ranger by Frankie Love. This was the first book in the Heartlands Motorcycle Club series. It was actually the last day of July, and there was a book being released the next day that I wanted to read. So I didn't want to start like a full-length novel, and I found this on Kindle. It was a short, and I knew it was going to be more erotic story, but it was just too much. I usually have a problem with short stories anyway because it's full of insta love, and I don't do well with that. I need more of a story, a plot, and getting to know each other first. And sometimes I can do okay with reading more short stories, but this one was just laughable. They pretty much right after they met, they got in bed with each other. So that was just, it was just too much for me, and so I had to DNF it. I was like, well, I'll just wait. So that was the book that I did DNF this month. The first book I read in July was Fire in His Veins by Ruby Dixon. This is number 6 in the Fireblood Dragon series. This is a series about dragon shifters. They come from their world into Earth through a rift, and they are just filled with madness. Their minds are filled with madness, and they just destruct. And the humans are trying to survive these dragons killing everybody. The only way they can be tamed is if they find a mate. The story is about Liam. He is a dragon shifter, but when the rift happened, he was not in draconi form. He was in his non-battle form. They don't really they don't say like human, but it was pretty much his human form. And he was able to not lose his mind because he just completely shut the draconi side out of his life. So he did not communicate with other dragons. He did not shift into a dragon, so he just completely cut all of that out to save his mind because he did not want to lose himself to the madness. He looks different than most humans because of the color of his eyes. He has spikes on his arms. He has golden skin and everything like that. He's been going from fort to fort, and he has been disguising himself as a human. And now he's in this particular fort, which we were at in the last book. He is starting to have feelings for Andrea, who is one of the girls that helps run the fort. And her brother takes off. He runs away, and she's scared for him. So she sets off to find him, and he comes with her to help protect her. He's really good at tracking, so he comes to help her, and along the way is their story and about how they find love with each other. And it was a really good book continuing on in that series, and I absolutely enjoyed it, and I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read is Toxic Desire by Robin Lovett. This is the first book in the Planet of Desire series. This is actually a book that I had recommended from Avery Loves Books. I'll list her channel down below. I rated this 3 stars initially, but then I bumped it up to a 4 because it has a really interesting plot. The only reason I had first rated it 3 stars is because I didn't really feel as much connection between the main characters as I would have liked to have felt, but it still was a very interesting premise, and I want to continue on in the series. This is about Nim is a captain or leader in the military. She is on her ship, but they have actually left the military because they do not agree with what the military is doing, because they are just like killing all species. different species, and she is not for that. She just wants to discover and find out, discover new planets and everything like that. And their ship is attacked by Odin and his crew, which they are some of the species that the humans have been killing. So of course they think that they're coming to kill them. So they attack the ship and they land on this planet. And this planet this is where it gets wild. And you just really have to just take this with a grain of salt. The only way you can survive on this island is having sexual relations. And as crazy as that sounds, it did really make for an interesting plot line, because they are enemies. They both hate each other because she thinks he tried to kill them, which he did, and he thinks that she's trying to kill him. So they're just at war with each other. But the only way they can stop from like this burning feeling and just being sick is to be with each other, which they hate. So they are just doing what they have to do to survive. And that was a really interesting storyline. It was very unique. I've never read anything like it before, and I really want to continue on in the series. I'll just have to give it a try. I'm sure it's not for everybody, but it was a very unique book that I enjoyed, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read is Breaking Gravity by Autumn Gray. This is the second book in the Fallback series. I've read the first one in June, which was Fallback Skyward, and this book, Breaking Gravity, follows the sister of the main character from the first book. So her name is Elan. Would highly suggest reading the first book so you know what kind of goes on, because they have a very big family, dysfunctional family that you will find out about in the first book. It does sort of go into that, but not quite as in much detail. And she is going to college. They're finally away, free from their father, who has really caused her and her family a lot of pain throughout their life. And she meets this guy who is her professor. So she is going there. It's a school of music, and she is there, and he is her teacher, and he is dealing with a lot of pain from his past too. This is kind of a new start for him, and they are both hugely attracted to each other, and they are trying to constantly fight it because they know that she will be banned from going to school and ruin her future career, and that he would be fired and he wouldn't have a job anymore. So it was a really good book. This was between Elan and Nate, and I couldn't recommend it more. I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read was A Lesson in Thorns by Sierra Simone. This is a book that I've been hearing a lot about over the last year. This is about a group of friends. They knew each other when they were kids because all their parents were friends. And they stayed at this place that belonged to one of the members in their little group, and it has like a secret chapel that's hidden in a maze. And their parents did things, their rituals and whatnot, and it broke their parents apart. Everybody kind of went their separate ways, so all the kids grew up without each other. But now they have come back together at the same place. One of the guys in the group, he inherited the place and it is now his. So they are all back together again, and they are discovering some of the history of the place and what kind of rituals that goes on there. And so they kind of partake in it. And this is also a very unique story. I've never read anything like it. They all kind of like each other, and several of them are with each other through the book, and it was very unique. I really enjoyed it because it's a unique story, and I actually have the second book on my TBR for August, and I rated this one 5 stars as well. Then the next book I read is Rush by Candy Steiner. This is the first book in the Palm South University series. Jess and Mina and Melissa they all did a read along for the Palm South University series in July. So I participated in the read along, which I didn't do the exact dates because I binged read all 4 of them. Once I started the first one, I almost put it down and said never mind, because I knew that it was going to read more like a TV show. There wasn't going to be like a completed end at the end of the book. But I picked it back up because I said, well, I've never read it, so I want to. And once I got into the first book, I could not put them down. I read all 4 of them in a row in just like 2 or 3 days. I was hooked. I was addicted. And I really loved reading the Palm South University series. And I gave all of them 5 stars. I read Rush, which was the first. This follows a group of people at college at Palm South University in South Florida. The books portray what a lot of like issues and things that people go through while they're in college. This follows friendships, this follows relationships, this follows falling in love, breaking up, just all kinds of things that happen through their years at college there. The second book in the series is Anchor, and I gave it 5 stars. The third one is Pledge, and I gave it 5 stars. And the fourth one is Legacy, and I gave it 5 stars. Then the next book I read along with Legacy, which is the 4th book in the Palm South University series. Because while you're reading Legacy, Candy suggests reading Black Number 4 along with Legacy, because Black Number 4 revolves around 2 characters in Legacy, and so you get more of their story in Black Number 4. So I did read Black Number 4 along with Legacy, and I rated it 4 stars. The next book I read is Darkness Embrace by Tilly Cole. This is the 7th book in the Hades Hangman series. It is a motorcycle club series, and we follow one of the motorcycle club members, Tanner. He grew up in the Ku Klux Klan, and he was raised to take over the Klan one day. But along the way, on one of his trips to Mexico, where they were doing dealings with the cartel, he fell in love with a Mexican girl. She was the leader's daughter, and he promised her that he would come back for her one day. And he left the Ku Klux Klan because he realized that what they stood for wasn't right, and he left and joined the motorcycle club. And it is their story. You read their backstory of how they met and how they fell in love, and how he left the Ku Klux Klan, and then when they are going to rescue her, and all the drama that ensues with the rescue. It was a really good book. I love to see Tanner's redemption from being with such an awful organization, and it was really good, and I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read is Chaos at Prescott High. This is the 2nd book in the Havoc Boys series. This is by C.M. Stunage. This is about a girl named Bernadette, and she has just been through a lot in her life. She has dealt with so much pain, so much heartache, and she has also been bullied by this group of boys at her school, even though they were kind of looked out for her ever since elementary school. They formed a gang called Havoc because it is each of their initials of their names. So we have Hell, Aaron, Victor, Oscar, and Callum. So that's all 5 of their names, and they bullied her the year before in high school because once somebody calls out Havoc and they have them do something for them, they pay a price, and then the Havoc boys do that for them. Well, a girl, her ex-best friend, called Havoc on her, and so that's why they had to bully her. But they still did it in a way that they could have done it a lot worse. And I'm not trying to justify, but you will read on in the books that there were reasons behind what they did, because they also wanted to push her away from them, because they wanted to make her hate them so she would go live a normal life, because she was always drawn to them, and they were trying to push her away so she wouldn't have to live the life that they live. So anyway, she does not like these guys at all, but in the first book she calls Havoc because she has a long list of people who she wants to get back at, who have wronged her in her life, and so she calls for their help, and now they're helping her. And of course, as time goes on, she starts to feel for each of the boys. One of the boys used to actually be her boyfriend, so she really feels for him, and they all have feelings for her. Kind of all see that unraveling, and especially in the 2nd book, which is Chaos. And it was really good. I really highly enjoyed it, and I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read was The Fire Between High and Low by Brittany C. Cherry. This is the second book in the Element series. This follows Alyssa and Logan. They knew each other from high school and they are best friends. Logan lives in a very bad situation. His mother is a drug addict and he works a job trying to support him and her, and his father is a drug supplier. He is a drug dealer, and so he abuses his mom, and he also abuses Logan, and so they are at his mercy, and he is just not in a good situation, and he also partakes drugs himself. And Alyssa becomes his best friend, and Alyssa is from a better family, but her dad does disappear on her and has nothing to do with her, which really breaks her heart. And her mother is very cold towards her. She wants Alyssa to do everything that she wants, but there's really no affection and love. So Alyssa and Logan just really bond together and form a strong friendship, which eventually leads into more, until there's a lot that happens. I don't want to go into it too much to spoil the plot, but there's a lot happens. Logan, there is a huge misunderstanding that happens in the book between them, and Logan goes off and he just really delves into drugs deeper than before, and he becomes an addict as well. And then you see his journey as he recovers from being a drug addict and their fight to try to be together. And it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I really love reading about broken characters and their struggle to survive and prosper in life. So I really enjoyed it and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was My Maddie by Tilly Cole, and this is number 8 in the Haynes Hangman series. This is about Flame and Maddie, who you have read about before in a previous book. This is kind of like their second book in the series. You really have to read their main book, which is number 3 in the series, to really understand this. I would actually highly suggest reading the whole series before you read this. But this just continues on in their life. Flame is a broken man. He comes from a very bad situation, and so does Maddie, which is his wife, but she is more of a rock to him. She is his light in his dark world. And then something happens to where he just totally loses his mind. He's just grappling with all the grief and all the heartache that he's been dealt with in life. And it is up to Maddie to try to pull him back to her again and not let him succumb to the darkness. And it was very good, really, really good, and I loved it, and I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read is The Silent Waters by Brittany C. Cherry. This is the 3rd book in the Element series. This is about Maggie. When she was a little girl, she was infatuated with her brother's best friend, Brooks. I think they were 10. She was 10 and he was 11. I'm pretty sure, if I got the ages right. And she was planning on having a little marriage to him. She was planning out what they were going to wear, and she was trying to get flowers for the little wedding, and it was really cute until she went off into the woods the day of their wedding rehearsal, and she saw something very tragic that just totally scarred her for life. After she saw that, she never spoke again. She could not speak because the tragedy she suffered was just too much, and she just refused to ever speak again. And once they brought her home, she never left the house again. She couldn't do it. She couldn't leave the safety of her house. And so then you see their backstory, and then from when they were growing up and then to now to their present. See them in high school and when they graduate. And Brooks is, of course, her brother's best friend, who she tried to marry when she was a little girl. And of course, he didn't really like her much back then, but then they have always since then, they have been best friends. He would do anything for her. He comes to her room, and he always asks her every day when he comes in from their way to school. He asks her how she's doing and if he can come in and talk to her. And he is really big on music. Him and her brother and some friends, they actually form a band in high school. He is her absolute best friend, and they love each other, and then it leads to more from being best friends to lovers. but then there are things that happen to each one of them that pushes them away, and it's their fight to try to be together. An excellent book, and I rated it 5 stars. Then I read Cruel Black Hearts by Candace Wondrak. This is the first book in the Cruel Black Hearts series. I actually read all 4 books. So there is Cruel Black Hearts, Cold Dark Souls, Sick Twisted Minds, and Vile Wicked Eyes. This series is a reverse harem series because this follows a girl. She is a writer for this newspaper in their town, and she writes articles about killers, about serial killers. She's just very fascinated with them, and so she writes about them. And it is one of their most highly viewed articles in the paper. And then there's Lincoln and Edward, and she captures Edward's attention from her articles, and of course you know what they are killers. So captures Edward's attention, and he goes and meets her at the bar. He brings her back home. They are both with her. Usually they don't really commit to anybody, but they slowly commit to her, especially Edward. Lincoln is more slow to do so, but in the series of the 4 books you will find out that they are killers. They are actually from a family of assassins who very wealthy people pay this group of assassins to eliminate people, and that's what they do for a living. So they are actually killers, and as the books progress on, she discovers who they are, and then they get her to join in with them. There's a serial killer who pops up in the area who she's very fascinated with. She actually names him. Okay, my battery actually died, and so I'm going to try to wrap this up pretty quickly, but she does name the serial killer that's in their area, and she is infatuated with him, and then it turns out that she is with all 3 of them eventually. Of course, I do not condone killing or being a serial killer or an assassin or anything like this, but this was just a very unique series to read, and I read all 4 of them, and I rated them all 4 stars. Then I read Hearts in Darkness by Laura Kay. This is the first book in the Hearts in Darkness series. This follows McKenna and Caden. They are trapped in this elevator together. They didn't really see each other before they were trapped in it, and now it is dark, and he is having panic attacks because of something that has happened in his past, and she is there to try and help him get through it. And so she talks a lot. They play 20 questions a lot just to try to get it off his mind, and the time passes. They are eventually rescued, and they have already started to feel something for each other because they have learned a lot about each other in the elevator. So he goes home with her, and that is where the first book ends. And then I read the second one, which is Love in the Light. This continues on in the relationship where they have become, are in a relationship with each other. This is where he is just having a lot of doubt because he still suffers from anxiety and depression so much, and he has a lot of doubt that something good like her, that he could have anything good in his life, and he pretty much wrecks the relationship from his self-doubt, and he kind of just pushes her away, but then something happens to her, and it just makes him realize that he was the one this time to push the good out of his life, and so he tries to reconcile his relationship with her. I really enjoyed both books, and I rated them 5 stars. Then I read 4 Psychos by Christy Cunning. This is the first book in the Dark Side series. This is another reverse harem series. This follows a girl who she wakes up one day as a ghost type of figure. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't even know what she is, but she follows these 4 guys who live together. She has to be near them constantly because if she's not near them, she starts to be sucked into this place of nothing, this place of darkness, and it's very painful. So she pretty much haunts them. They don't know she's there though. She follows them around for 5 years, and so that is what happens in the first book, 4 Psychos. Then I read the second book, which is 3 Trials. She actually makes herself known to them. She levels up is what she calls it. So they can see her, but they're very wary of her. They think that she is harmful to them, and so they try to push her away, but she helps save them. She looks after them, and while they are going through these, it's like a competition of sorts. Okay, I had to switch to my phone because my battery is just completely dead. It will not run anymore. So as I was saying, I was reading the Dark Side series by Christy Cunning. This follows a girl who is a ghost who then turns into a real girl, but she can kind of switch herself back and forth. And she follows these 4 guys, and they are trying to discover who they are. And it is a really great series. I will not reveal who they are because I think that would be a spoiler, since it's revealed in the 2nd and 3rd books, and of course the 4th book. But it is a pretty good series. It's a fantasy series of a girl who has to stick with these 4 guys, and of course it's reverse harem. I enjoyed them and I rated them all 4 stars. The first one is 4 Psychos, the second one is 3 Trials, the third one is 2 Kingdoms, and the 4th one is 1 Apocalypse. So I recommend them if you're looking for a fantasy / reverse harem series. The next book I read was On the Island by Tracy Garvis Graves. I have seen this recommended a lot. I just didn't pick it up until recently because I watched Jen from the Book Refuge talk about it, and after she talked about it, I just really got to thinking about it, and I said, that sounds really interesting. And I'm really glad I did, because I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. And if I didn't have kids, I would have read it all in one sitting. But of course I have kids, so that is unrealistic. But I read it as close to one sitting as I could. So I stayed up really late reading it at night, and then got up in the morning and finished it. This is about a girl named Anna who is going to be a tutor for this family over the summer for this boy, 16-year-old boy who has had cancer, and he's beat cancer, but he is behind in his school. So they are taking a vacation for the summer in these islands, and they hired her to be his tutor. They fly separately because the school she teaches at didn't get out until after they would already have left. So she and the boy TJ traveled separately on another plane. Their plane went down into the ocean, and they washed ashore on this island, and it was uninhabited, and you saw their struggle for just to survive, just to get fresh water, to get food to eat. And they stayed on the island for 3 or 4 years, I can't remember exactly, but they were eventually rescued. And of course they have a relationship with each other, because of course they were the only 2 people on the island. And of course they would start having feelings for each other, but nothing did happen until he was of age. He was actually almost 19 when something did happen. But they fell in love with each other because they were each other's best friends. They were each other's everything, because that's all they had. And they didn't even know if they would ever be rescued. But they were, and they were put back into their lives. A lot of people judged them because of the age difference, because she was much older than him, and they think that she took advantage of him, but they didn't understand what they had went through. And so and then they struggled to stay together, and I just thoroughly enjoyed the book. It was so good, and I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read was Uncharted by Tracy Garvis Graves. This is a novella following On the Island. When they were on the island, they had actually found this like little cabin house that had been built there before, and these bones in a cave, and they didn't know anything about it. Well, a guy steps forward after he has heard their story, and he was actually on the island before them, so he tells them what happened there before they were washed ashore there. So it was a neat this was a novella following it, and it was neat to see kind of a backstory on what was kind of a mystery in the first book, and I rated it 4 stars. And the last book I read for the month of July was Epic by Serena Bowen. This is a novella in the Him series. This is number 2.5. This follows Wes and Jamie, who we've read about before in Him and Us. This is just a short story about Jamie's career. He is a coach, but he is starting to be offered a chance to play on a team. And so this just follows about them deciding where their careers are going to take them, what's going to happen to their relationship, and all that. It was a short novella, but I really enjoyed being back in the world with Wes and Jamie because I really just love them so much. I love the love that they share together. They are really funny with each other, and of course their friend Blake, which is one of Wes's teammates, was there, and of course he's always super funny. And I really enjoyed reading this novella to end out the month. So that was all the books that I read for July. Let me know if you've read any of them and what you think about them. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.